Okay, we have had a decent amount of news as of late. We go all offseason just talking Dynasty Fantasy Football, and we really don't have much outside of the NFL Combine, outside of the NFL Draft. Well, now we have some suspension news that we are going to have to get to. Now we have some training camp news as well. So this is going to be an important Dynasty startup mock draft to kind of see where the overall Dynasty community currently stands with players like Alvin Kamara, like Deshaun Watson. Now we're going to be selecting at the 111. This is going to be a super flex tight end premium draft that also has a third round reversal. I don't want to waste your time. Let's go ahead. Let's dive into this draft right now. Going to be a 30-second timer as well. So we will be moving pretty fast here, which in my opinion, I think is actually going to be a little bit better. People have to be on their feet. People really have to be paying attention to the draft. You can't really just zone all out. But now we have a run of quarterbacks going. Really top three guys you're always expecting to be Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. That's no surprise to anyone. Where you get to the 104, that's where we begin to have some questions like, are you going to go with the Burrow? Do you go Kyler? Do you potentially go Jonathan Taylor, Jamar Chase if you don't want to go with the quarterback position? So really, the mock draft starts at the 104, and I think that you can make an argument for almost any one of those players in that tier. So we have Chase, Lamar, Jonathan Taylor. We need to be paying attention because we are about to be up. There are three names that I'd be fine with, so let's see if we get one of them. Dak honestly wasn't even who I was looking at. So yeah, we are going to get one of our two guys here. I don't want to queue up the players that I wanted because there's a shot we get them coming back around to us at the beginning of the second round. Now, one of the guys, of course, Justin Jefferson, would have been a dream to get Justin Jefferson at the 111. So we will go ahead. We said at the very beginning of this live stream that this is a 12-team tight end premium superflex format. We will take Kyle Pitts here at the 111. And let's see what happens coming back around. And I know we were probably going to make a pick that upset some people. Najee Harris would have been our selection if he was available to us at the 202. Cooper Kupp off the board. Now, I understand. Dear God. Dear God. This is a tough selection. I am personally a Dynasty Fantasy Football player that is willing to take on some risk for an elite ceiling. And I think that's what you have with Deshaun Watson. Yes, it's possible that Deshaun Watson misses the entire season. I honestly didn't think that was going to happen whenever you looked at the Cleveland Browns trading 3 future first-round picks to make Deshaun Watson the NFL record holder for guaranteed money at signing. They paid Deshaun Watson an absurd amount of money, all guaranteed. And on top of that, they paid 3 first-round picks to him. So I looked at it saying, okay, well, with Watson, yeah, he'll probably serve a suspension. It'll probably be about 8 weeks. Since then, it looks like it's going to be longer. It looks like it may be an entire season for Watson. It is what it is. We're taking him at the beginning of the second round. When he does play, he will be a top 5 quarterback. We've seen through his first 4 years of his NFL career that he has the ceiling to be the quarterback 1 overall, and he has the floor to be a top 5 option. Like, nobody has that ceiling and floor combination outside of Patrick Mahomes based on what we've seen. So I'm willing to roll the dice. I'm willing to take Deshaun Watson at the 202. Now, if I would have gone with the win now asset in the first round, like say your first pick is Cooper Kupp, that's a team you probably shouldn't draft Deshaun Watson with, because if you take Cooper Kupp, it's not a fit to take Watson alongside him because you may have to punt this upcoming season and you're not drafting a 29-year-old wide receiver just to punt. But when we take Kyle Pitts, a tight end going into year 2 in the first round, this gives us the flexibility where, hell, if he does get suspended for the entire season, we can turn this into a productive struggle team. So we need to keep that strategy throughout. Now we know, hell, this team may not be playing for this upcoming year. We may need to look for some long-term value here. And let me give a shout out to everybody in the chat right now. Thank y'all, of course, for coming out here. We have Logan says he traded away Devonta Smith for Deshaun Watson in an 8-team Superflex league. My man, obviously you're seeing where I draft Deshaun Watson, so you know I love that. And now here, let's see what Post Dylan decides to do. He is at the 301. There's one player that I would like making it to us. He goes Devonte Adams. So we're going to go ahead and take a wide receiver that in my opinion, should not be nearly this far down ADP. He was the wide receiver 12 or 13 on a per game basis last year. In year 2, set up alongside a franchise quarterback for years to come. The overall offense should be better this upcoming season with the improvements they made into the offensive line. So I'm going to take T. Higgins here. Now, I think you could make a strong argument for either A.J. Brown or Deebo Samuel at this selection. And if I would have gone with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts in the second round, Russell Wilson in the second round, there I may have leaned with someone like A.J. Brown, someone that we can expect that top-level production from right away. And hell, we can be excited about that on a team that can compete this upcoming season. But we're drafting this with the knowledge that you most likely have Watson missing the majority of the year, if not the entire season. So we're needing to look for that long-term value, which I'm excited for T. Higgins. Y'all know, we do these drafts on the live stream all the time on Underdog Fantasy, those real money fantasy football drafts for this upcoming season. And if you look at where T. Higgins is being drafted on Underdog Fantasy, where they've already kicked off, literal millions of dollars of fantasy drafts this offseason have been played on Underdog Fantasy. And if you look at that ADP for redraft leagues, you have A.J. Brown and T. Higgins going back-to-back at the 2-3 turn. Drafters are expecting T. Higgins, A.J. Brown to give you similar production this upcoming season. T. Higgins is being drafted a full round and almost a round and a half ahead of Jalen Waddle. So in Dynasty, whenever he is younger than A.J. Brown by 2 years, and while he's younger than Waddle by a couple months as well, I'm going to prefer T. Higgins over him. And of course, if y'all want to hop into real money fantasy football drafts with us, if y'all want to draft with us on the live stream, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code FLOCK. You can find the link in the live chat, find the link in the description of the video. And when you sign up for Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, they will match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And on top of that, you'll get our Dynasty rankings. You'll get our Dynasty rookie rankings. You will get our Dynasty rookie draft guide. So please make sure you're taking advantage of that. So here, after we take T. Higgins, you have Brown, you have Deebo Samuel. I think the two best picks afterwards. Mixon, Waddle, Lawrence, London. Really, none of these picks are too surprising. What I will say is, based on some of the veteran running back that you are going to have later on in drafts, like based on the value that you could get on a James Cook, a Leonard Fournette, guys that are almost sliding into the double-digit rounds, or at least were earlier this offseason, I've never been a fan of drafting like a Joe Mixon or an Austin Eckler in this range, because you know that this is a player that can only see their value decrease. And yes, you're drafting them for their production this upcoming season. But hell, I'd rather take the Fournette. I'd rather take the James Conner at a significant discount where the opportunity cost isn't nearly as high. Okay, yeah, thank you. I see everybody out in the chat. Nick says, I'm doing a weird format league where it's a one-person keeper league for each position. And if you keep them, you forfeit one round after you draft them the following year. Honestly, if it's a 4-player keeper league, which if you can keep one quarterback, one running back, one wide receiver, one tight end, it's only a 4-player keeper league. Treat it like a redraft league. It's more similar to redraft than it is going to be to Dynasty. Now, Michael Pittman Jr. going at the 402. Listen to who Michael Pittman Jr. goes ahead of. And I'm not going to come out here and say this is a bad selection, because going over to Underdog Fantasy, where those real money leagues are, where those actual smart drafters are, Michael Pittman Jr. is going in the middle of the third. And the man's going into year 3. Like Michael Pittman Jr. right now, some people are trying to project as a low-end wide receiver 1 in fantasy. I don't understand it. He was like the wide receiver 28 on a per-game basis last year. This is a wide receiver that had a 26% team target share. His team was top 10 in the NFL in points scored last year. I don't think it gets that much better with Matt Ryan. Now, I can't draft him over Tyreek. I can't draft him over Kelsey. I can't draft him over Kittle. I don't know if I could draft him over Fields either. Y'all know I don't even like Justin Fields. I can't draft him over Travis Etienne. I personally would never consider Michael Pittman Jr. here. I wouldn't draft him over Deontay Johnson. I wouldn't draft him over DJ Moore. There are a lot of players that I would prefer, but this is the market price now for Michael Pittman Jr. I mean, if you traded for him on the cheap at the very beginning of the offseason, congrats. I would go through and I would explore options to potentially sell him high now. Great pick, Travis Etienne at the 406. I thought that we were potentially going to be going with Travis Etienne at the end of the 4th, because it would fit this build if we needed to potentially, I don't want to say full-blown punt this upcoming season, but what I also want to point out is that team took Trevor Lawrence in the middle of the third. So when you take Lawrence, you're already betting that you are going to get an improvement overall in that Jacksonville Jaguars offense. Might as well double down with Travis Etienne, get that correlation in the lineup. Love the DJ Moore selection. Sad to see DJ Moore go. Okay, so Derrick Henry off the board. We really can't consider Kamara, Nick Chubb, Aaron Rodgers. None of those players are really in this range for us considering how we started this draft. So I'm actually going to go with Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson at the 411, in my opinion, it's going to be a value. He was the wide receiver 7 on a per game basis last year. He averaged 10.5 targets a game, and Ben Roethlisberger was atrocious. I don't think it gets much worse with the quarterback play in Pittsburgh this upcoming season. So now you have Derek Carr, Darren Waller going at the turn. We need to continue to stay young. Okay, there are a couple different names I'd be looking at. Let's go ahead. Let's get a running back that next year is not going to have Rashad Penny on that roster. Rashad Penny only signed a 1-year contract in Seattle. So if we're looking at it through that lens and we're looking at Kenneth Walker as a player that will be a primary bell cow starting next season for the Seattle Seahawks when we probably need production, hell, we can just say, oh, I need a running back here. And if we're looking at the Seattle Seahawks organization, I'm actually more confident in their ability to go through a quick rebuild and to revamp this offense, considering the resources that they got for Russell Wilson. I mean, this is a team that will have 2 first-round picks next year, 2 first-round picks the year after that, 2 second-round picks next year. I mean, this team will have the resources. They're also not paying a quarterback a significant amount of money. Who knows? Maybe they're able to go out there and get Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo on the cheap. So I'm fine taking Kenneth Walker here at the 502. I just think that on a rebuilding roster in particular, we have to. And whenever we are looking at this team, yes, I have Treylon Burks ranked over Kenneth Walker in terms of our overall rookie rankings, but when we already start off with T. Higgins and Deontay Johnson, I think it's close enough to just use it as a tiebreaker. And on those rebuilding teams, which this essentially is, this is going to be a productive struggle team. We really don't want to be having to push up running backs later on. Like, I know I'm going to find wide receiver values that I really like in round 6, 7, 8, 9, whereas that may not necessarily be true at the running back position in terms of those long-term options. Dominic says, Matt Ryan has assisted some massive wide receiver to wide receiver 1 seasons. Yes, I literally had to look into this. It was the craziest thing ever because whenever I talk down on Michael Pittman Jr., I do have a lot of people telling me, oh, Mason, hey, what you're missing is you're missing Matt Ryan's tendency to prop up a wide receiver 1 in Atlanta. Have you not paid attention to the past decade? So I had to go through and I had to do some in-depth, deep level analysis. And I had to dive into this Atlanta Falcons roster over the past decade. And there was this guy, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, like Julio Jones, something like that. He looked pretty damn good. He looked like he was potentially a Hall of Fame wide receiver. At one point, he was probably the best wide receiver in the NFL. So I'm unsure if we can say that Matt Ryan actually propped up this guy named Julio Jones. I get confused. I don't really know who he is. He's a no-name player, but he's really under the radar. I promise you, I know you maybe don't think he's that good, but he was very good back in the day. So if Matt Ryan used to prop up wide receiver 1 seasons year in and year out, maybe that was more with this, I think, Julio Jones. I'll have to look into it a little bit more. Like I said, I'm doing deep level analysis here. Really had to dive into this. Maybe it was more with that Julio guy than Matt Ryan himself. Geoff says, what are the odds that Watson at post-suspension is the same player he was before? I'd say pretty damn high. Why would he be anything else? With Watson, he has been training with Deshaun Watson. Is a quarterback, like I said, his floor was the quarterback 5 whenever he was playing over the past 4 seasons. No other quarterback has that kind of floor. That's a ceiling for a lot of these guys. Joe Burrow has never even posted a ceiling like that. Okay, so Jerry Jeudy goes to the 601. Love the Jerry Jeudy selection. He was in play for me at the 502 with that Kenneth Walker pick. I'm not too excited about it. Like I said, on this rebuilding roster in particular, I think if you're just looking at wide receiver value compared to running back later on, we are going to be able to go through. We are going to be able to find some wide receivers that I like for a productive struggle team where it's going to be hard to do that in the later rounds at running back in particular because in the later rounds at running back. You're drafting guys that you think can be primary handcuffs. You're drafting someone like an Alexander Mattison, a Tony Pollard that you think can step up into the right situation if the starter goes down in front of him. But it's hard to find those guys that you are very confident with their long-term ability. Whereas at wide receiver, hell, we can go get a Chris Olave. We can get a Jameson Williams. Hell, wide receiver, we can go through. We can get an Amon-Ra St. Brown. We can get Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, Sky Moore, Christian Watson, Brandon Ayuk, Gabriel Davis. Like, there are so many guys that you can be excited about their long-term upside. Okay, so Aaron Jones goes at the 607. Good for us. Let's get these running backs off, particularly these running backs that are going to front load that production as well. Really like the J.K. Dobbins pick at the 603. I think that's fine value on J.K. Dobbins. Interesting to see Alvin Kamara go at the 508. So Alvin Kamara goes about 2.5 rounds after Joe Mixon. So if you're looking at the opportunity cost to take Joe Mixon, you're passing on Jalen Waddle at the wide receiver position. And the opportunity cost to take Alvin Kamara, you're passing on like a Chris Godwin and Terry McLaurin. Okay, so Hollywood Brown does go at the 608. We are potentially not going to go with the receiver. Yeah, I think we're going to go quarterback here. Kevin Effect says, fellas, smash the like. Yes, sir. If y'all have not done so already, go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, even though everybody watching this is already subscribed. Now, James Conner at the 610. Hell, yes, Mac Jones has no rushing upside at all. But he was hyper efficient as a rookie. Now, yes, that maybe was due to the offensive line. Maybe that was due to the coaching staff. But great news, that offensive line's still there. Bill Belichick is still there. So we're going to go Mac Jones, and I'm not even a massive fan of Zach Wilson. Y'all know I've been on record coming out saying, you know what? Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, these guys are most likely bad NFL quarterbacks. Like, I want to be on record looking at the adjusted yards per attempt for these quarterbacks through their rookie season. It's unlikely that any of them ever turn into Josh Allen. You know, Josh Allen's the perfect example that everybody that sees a rookie quarterback that fails, they all go, oh, look at Josh Allen's rookie season. These guys take time. No, 9 times out of 10, if they're very bad their rookie year, it's not like they're going to turn it around. But still, the price point, Zach Wilson, the player that was selected number 2 overall in the NFL draft last year, that has Garrett Wilson, that has Elijah Moore, that has Breece Hall, that has an upgraded offensive line, that I'm going to take Zach Wilson here at the 702 with a rebuilding roster in particular. I'm completely fine with this quarterback position. So far, we have the elite tight end in Kyle Pitts. At quarterback, we have, I want to say, a floor with Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, guys that we know will have starting jobs over the next few seasons. We have the ceiling provided by Deshaun Watson as well. At wide receiver, we have 2 wide receiver ones that are still on their rookie contracts in T. Higgins and Deontay Johnson. And we have a running back that should be a bell cow level option whenever you have no Rashad Penny next year. And I say bell cow, probably tongue in cheek. I probably shouldn't use that word because obviously he's not going to be having a massive role as a receiving running back, but he'll still be getting a ton of touches on first and second down. James says, Mason, let's get a Superflex draft live. I need the criticism. I've dropped over $500 so far, and I haven't had. My man, I'm assuming you're a part of our locals community. Literally, just post any draft that you have on our locals page, and I'll be happy to go through and look at it. Okay, so Josh Jacobs goes at the 708. Josh Jacobs is also a player that I like the price point on now. Like, I've never been a massive fan of Josh Jacobs, of David Montgomery, but I feel like the overall fantasy football community has soured on them, and for almost no reason whatsoever. Like, if I'm looking at these 2 players, I'm looking at 2 running backs that have expanded their roles, have legitimately 3 down workloads that are still on their rookie contracts, drafted in 2019. You're getting Josh Jacobs at the 708. Dear God, I love that value. Love that value with Josh Jacobs. Dan says, why so many quarterbacks? Is this a super flex? Yes, every Dynasty startup draft we'll ever do is a super flex draft. I'm never going to do a 1 quarterback draft unless it literally says in the title, first thing, 1 quarterback. If I say 1 quarterback, then yes. Okay, Dallas Goddard goes at the 712. MLB Mike says, Watson being out is about to crush his value. He's only going to get older. Oh, my man. I've also had to do some in-depth analysis on this as well. It is surprising to say this, but every player in this draft Every player, through Sky Moore even all the way to the 801, they're only going to get older. None of these guys. I've crunched the numbers. I put them in our model. None of these guys are getting younger. Maybe Amari Cooper. Maybe Sammy Watkins if he goes later. But based on my calculations, none of these guys are getting younger. And also based on my calculations, Deshaun Watson's 26 years old and quarterbacks play until they're 38 if they're elite. Russell Wilson goes 2 picks after him. What? Russell Wilson's 34 now? Or going to be 34? Let me look this up. Yeah, Russell Wilson going to be 34 this season. Okay, so he's, 8 years older than Deshaun Watson? I don't think we need to be worried about that too much. Mike Williams, Devonta Smith. Really like the Smith value here. I know it was an auto selection, but I mean, he was a player that was falling a considerable amount. And I think with Smith, this definitely has the A.J. Brown trade priced in. This has the lack of passing volume in Philadelphia priced in as well. Now, I will say I would have taken Kenny Pickett if he would have fallen to us at the 8-11. I think that would have been fine value with Kenny Pickett, especially on a Deontay Johnson build. And hell, this is a team that's not competing this year, assuming that Watson is suspended. So we're just looking for that long-term value. We're looking for those players that we can trade during the season. James Cook goes probably going to reach on someone. I'm going to take someone that I don't want to say it out loud right now. I don't want to say it. Zachary will maybe steal from him. No, he goes Christian Watson. Okay, so obviously Cortland Sutton would never make it this far in a Dynasty startup draft. Cortland Sutton would have been drafted 3 rounds ago if you were in your regular Dynasty startup draft. This is the flock here, okay? Everybody here is a part of the flock. We posted this a link over there on our locals community, so that's why you're going to see Cortland Sutton falling, and I'm not even going to take Sutton here. Even if he's the quote-unquote best value, I mean, I'm looking at Cortland Sutton saying he doesn't fit our build. Cortland Sutton's a wide receiver that is pushing 27 at this point, so let's go ahead and let's reach on Gabriel Davis. Now, Gabriel Davis, I've been on record saying, you know what? Heading over to Underdog Fantasy, where y'all seeing us draft every single day, he's going before guys like David Montgomery. He's going at the end of the 4th round. He's going as a top 24 wide receiver. He's going over DK freaking Metcalf, which I think is atrocious. I think that price point on Gabriel Davis makes no sense at all. However, getting him here at the 8-11, acknowledging the fact that, hell, it's at least in the range of outcomes. It's in the range of outcomes for Gabriel Davis to come out here and be a top 24 wide receiver. And if that were to occur based on the hype built around Gabriel Davis already, this is a wide receiver that with his dynasty value going into year 4 would be able to skyrocket. Now, Cortland Sutton goes to the 903. I will say, if you want to take Cortland Sutton, I'm not going to fight it here. If you want to take Sutton at the 903, you do you. I think it's a fine value. Like I said, I did not take him because I want to continue to hammer in these younger options on a Deshaun Watson build. In particular, I think that Freiermuth would fit our team more in a tight end premium format where we are building around that Pittsburgh Steelers offense with Deontay Johnson as well. So I did not take Sutton. And yes, y'all know I am repeatedly going on record saying Cortland Sutton is the most overvalued asset in fantasy football. But that's when Cortland Sutton's going in the middle of round 3 in those underdog real money fantasy football drafts that we were talking about. Here, very similar to Gabriel Davis. Maybe he's very overvalued in redraft, but in Dynasty, if you can get this price point for him, I'm fine with it. Now, Allen Robinson goes to the 905. Tony Pollard goes to the 906. Tony Pollard before Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Oh my gosh. How old is Clyde Edwards-Helaire? 23? 23 years old. I know he's been so disappointing so far his NFL career, but still, I feel like you almost have to just go ahead and you have to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Oh, like Dameon Pierce is going before him. Like Dameon Pierce, even if Pierce hits, this is why I wasn't a big fan of Dameon Pierce in Dynasty rookie drafts. Because if you're looking at those running backs that have no team investment, we've talked about this time and time again. If we're looking at those running backs with no team investment, even if they hit, they can be Michael Carter Jr. If they hit and have a great rookie season, you would not be surprised to see their NFL teams say, okay, thank you for your services. Oh, we get a top 10 pick in this year's NFL draft. Let's take Bijan Robinson. And then he's just dust. Like, and that's, I don't want to say best case scenario, but hell, even look at Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell averaged 100 total yards a game last year. And he's being drafted in the 8th round. He's being drafted 1 round before Dameon Pierce. Because when these players hit on day 3, these teams don't have the investment into them, and these teams aren't willing to commit to them for the long term. So, I personally think this Dameon Pierce selection, I don't like it. I love what you did earlier, getting Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence at that cost. I like the Chris Olave value, love the Dalton Schultz value. Just that Dameon Pierce pick, I cannot get behind. Michael Thomas goes to the 9-12 right after Davis Mills. Y'all know my stance on Michael Thomas. I don't necessarily need to go through and talk about that right now. Cole Kmet goes to the 10-01. Probably good for us. We already have 2 tight ends now. Because this is a dynasty format, because in theory you should be able to trade here 365 days a year, I wouldn't mind going and just continuing to hammer in tight end value if we think that's the best player available, even if we already have Kyle Pitts and Pat Freiermuth, especially on a productive struggle team. On a productive struggle team, hell, it doesn't matter if I think the best value in this draft is at the quarterback position. If I take 10 quarterbacks and don't have a single running back on the team, hell, I'm trying to get the 101 next year regardless. So, Cole Kmet goes to the 10-01. Gesicki, 10-02. Now, there are a few names I'm still very excited about. Hunter Renfrow goes. This is why I decided to, quote-unquote, reach on Kenneth Walker. Y'all know if you go look at my dynasty rankings, if you look at my dynasty rookie rankings, you're going to see that I have Treylon Burks, I have Garrett Wilson, both ranked over Kenneth Walker. But when we decided this is a productive struggle team, I knew that in these later rounds, I was not even going to be thinking about the running back position. I mean, it doesn't make sense for us to go with the Kareem Hunt in this range. I would never even consider it. We know that we want wide receivers. We know we want tight ends. We know we want some of these quarterbacks as well. So that's why we decided to, quote unquote, reach on Kenneth Walker a little bit, because I knew if we went out of this draft and we did not have a single running back, everybody was going to be losing their minds. Cadarius Tony goes to the 10-08, potentially the best value this draft. Oh my gosh, I was really hoping we were getting Cadarius Tony making it to us. Oh, great pick with Cadarius Tony. He had 2.2 yards per route run his rookie season. That's not just elite for rookies. That's elite in general. That's elite for any NFL wide receiver. Okay, we are 1 pick away. There's one guy I really have my eyes on. One guy I really want. And he goes, God dang, nice pick, Claypool. We get sniped on both of our wide receivers. Now we have to go through, try to find a different option. Maybe we take Malik Willis. Not Malik Willis, Rachaad White. I guess we could go Malik Willis if we wanted. Ramondre Stevenson. Okay. David Bell, Alec Pierce, Albert O, Irv Smith Jr., Rondell Moore. What am I doing? We'll call it the all-suspension team. Let's go ahead. Let's take Calvin Ridley here. There's one other name that I want. He doesn't necessarily fit the build, but there's a massive but on this end. We can trade him. Okay. Hopefully we get him. I maybe gave him away. We will see if Post Dillon decides to grab him. And if he does, I will be very upset. You know what? If it wasn't a 30-second timer, if we were on our crap, not thinking we were getting Chase Claypool, I would have gone ahead and I probably would have taken him first. But we are going to take Russell Gage here. Russell Gage does not fit this build. Okay? I'll be the first person to say it. With Russell Gage, yes, you want him on a contending roster. You're looking at a player that, oh dear God, we did not have this expanded the entire time. Are y'all kidding me? Nobody wanted to tell me this? Nobody wanted to tell me that? Are y'all kidding me? Come on, guys. But with Russell Gage, you're looking at a player that will be a better asset for a contending team. But I just think that at this price point, the 11-12, we have to go ahead. We have to take him. This is a wide receiver that should have a massive role this upcoming season with an injured Chris Godwin, with no Rob Gronkowski, with no Antonio Brown. They're paying him $30 million freaking dollars. Very excited to get Russell Gage here at the 11:02. Great value on Daniel Jones as well. Hey, Hazy coming out with the donation. Thank you so much. Says, looking to trade Mike Evans in a Superflex, a Dynasty 12-team PPR format. What could I get for him? This is why I think these videos are so damn useful, because hell, we can go through, we can look at exactly where Mike Evans is currently being valued. You're looking at Mike Evans around the range of wide receivers like Terry McLaurin, Treylon Burks, Chris Godwin, Jerry Jeudy, Garrett Wilson. Now, I'll say if you are a contending team, there's no reason to be looking to move on from Mike Evans. But if you're looking to trade Mike Evans on a rebuilding roster, I do think that makes sense. And assuming that is the case, that you're looking to get a little bit younger, I would potentially try to flip Mike Evans for an Amon-Ra St. Brown plus a future pick. Like if you're a contender, if you're a rebuilder and you have an extra future second round pick and you can try to ship Mike Evans in that future second and get Amon-Ra St. Brown or get Rashad Bateman or get Jameson Williams or get Devontae Smith or get Elijah Moore, or get Brandon Ayuk, any wide receiver here that would fit your build in the 7th, 8th round. If we can trade Mike Evans for that wide receiver and also add one of our second round picks into it and get back their first round pick from a contending team, I think that would make a lot of sense. Killa Gorilla says, I don't think Calvin Ridley is ever coming back. I hope he does, though. Guys, why would he not? You'll realize he was a top 5 wide receiver on a points per game basis the last year he was healthy, right? The last full season we had from Calvin Ridley, he was a top 5 wide receiver on a points per game basis, and that's including leaving games early due to injury. If we look at Calvin Ridley in his age, he's 27 years old. He's going to be 28 years old next year. If you're a 28-year-old wide receiver and you just missed out on 2 years of football, what incentive would you have to not come back to a team, even if you don't get the contract you would have had before the suspension? Before the suspension, Calvin Ridley's extension, the man would have gotten what? Amari Cooper a couple years ago had $100 million. Not saying Calvin Ridley is as good as Amari Cooper, even though he probably is. Calvin Ridley would have got $50 million minimum. Christian Kirk got what, 84? Let's say Calvin Ridley would have got $84 million. Even after the suspension, say that's cut in half. Say Calvin Ridley would sign a $20 million contract even. It's cut by 20. It's cut into 25% of that. You're Calvin Ridley. You don't want to go back to football for $25 million? Maybe he's not with the Atlanta Falcons. I think it's completely possible he's out of Atlanta. I mean, if you look at the Calvin Ridley contract, this was his last year regardless. Let me just make sure this was his last year. Now, I'm assuming that he's not accruing the year of service. So I'm assuming that he will have that one last year under contract for the Atlanta Falcons in 2023. But hell, you could easily see Atlanta decide to ship him off. And that's an $11 million deal as well. He's getting paid $11 million next year. Even without a contract extension, you're coming back for $11 million. Okay. So let's find our next player. We are, of course, continuing to try to stay young. And you have to scroll through this sleeper ADP. The sleeper ADP is just absolutely hot garbage. Like that underdog ADP, because they pump millions and millions of dollars into those drafts, and they're all the regular redraft format. That ADP is so damn set that if you're taking someone that you have to scroll down to see, you're probably making a mistake. Whereas on sleeper here, this ADP is so bad that if you're not scrolling down, you're not doing your job. There are 1 to 2 names that I think I can be excited about. Ramondre Stevenson does indeed go. Yeah. There's a name I'm looking at. One pick away. I think we're going to get him as well. Okay. We're going to continue to try to get pieces that have that long-term value. Alec Pierce goes, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Rondale Moore at the 12-11. Yes, he's very small. Yes, he disappointed his rookie season, but he was a mega producer at 18 years old at Purdue. This is a wide receiver that was also an elite level athlete. Now, yes, he doesn't even get used as a receiver. He gets used more like a running back if you look at his average depth of target. But I'm going to be completely fine with the investment here at the end of the 12th. And we're going to follow that up with Irv Smith Jr., one of my favorite buys overall in Dynasty Fantasy Football right now, here at the beginning of the 13th. I know this is our third tight end, but like we said at the beginning of this live stream, this is a tight end premium format. And since we have Watson here, we're not necessarily looking at this upcoming season as a year that we need to make sure that we have production in this starting lineup. No, we are looking at this draft saying, hell, we probably just want to continue to soak up value for the long term. And I don't need to be a rocket scientist to deduce that Irv Smith Jr. will probably have more long-term value than 30-year-old Cordell Patterson. Okay. So Jay Skillset says, I send Justin Fields for Zach Wilson in the Superflex League, ? No, I'm not doing it. I will say that Zach Wilson has a higher floor, and that if you look at the team investment that the New York Jets made into him with that second overall selection, if you're a top 3 pick in the NFL draft, I mean, at the quarterback position, you're allowed to fail over and over and over again. I mean, you're allowed to be Mitchell Trubisky, Blake Bortles, and you'll still have an NFL job for 4 years. Like, you'll be able to ride out your rookie contract. Whereas if you fall outside that top 3, you're more a mid-round 1 selection like Justin Fields. Yes, those teams are willing to move on from you. They're willing to move on from Dwayne Haskins. They're willing to move on from Josh Rosen if you fail at the beginning of your career. So I think the job security is there with Zach Wilson. However, the ceiling is going to lie with Justin Fields based on the rushing production in particular. Now, if you look at Justin Fields, his rookie season, now trust me, y'all know I hated Justin Fields. I would love to come out here and say, oh, he failed every measure. Now, if you look at his rushing yards per game, yeah, it wasn't what you expected, but it's unfair to use that against Justin Fields, even though I would love to. I can't. The man was playing some football games, only a half of them. So any per game numbers that you're going to be looking at from Justin Fields are going to be a little bit skewed. We can still easily say that Justin Fields has access to the rushing ceiling that Zach Wilson can't come close to. Okay, so now Dylan says, currently in a startup and snagged Ridley in the 13th. 100% think that Calvin Ridley can fall behind here. I mean, like we said, we broke down a Dynasty startup draft, I believe, yesterday. We talked about some of our favorite wide receiver values, and I think Calvin Ridley did fall behind here as well, but I'm not going to try to overthink it. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to take the player that I think will have the most value next offseason. And I think Calvin Ridley will have more value than Kareem Hunt next offseason. I think he'll have more value than Desmond Ridder next offseason. I think it's honestly a pretty safe bet as well. Okay, so Jalen Tolbert goes here at the end of the 13th. I like the Jalen Tolbert selection. Tyrion Davis-Price, I like that pick as well. There are a lot of names that are still intriguing. I mean, that's funny whenever you're going through and you are in those underdog drafts. By the time you get to the end of the draft in the 18th round, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't make a case for any one of these guys. But in Dynasty, you can go, okay, yeah, if I squint, this player, he can be something 2 years down the road. I like the talent. We could squint and see it. Whereas in redraft, you just don't have that option because obviously if they don't get you production immediately, then they just have no value. So let's scroll through. Got to find our next player. There are 2 names there that I like. A 3rd name. 4th name. 5th name. Okay. Yeah. Zamir White. I hate that. I do not like Zamir White. I understand you have Josh Jacobs. I would even be less likely to draft Zamir White if I had Josh Jacobs. But Zamir White has practically no upside at all. This was a player that fell to day 3 of the NFL draft. This is a player that had no role as a receiving running back in college, and he's undersized as well. I don't want an undersized first and second down grinder that has no team investment into him. I wouldn't consider Zamir White for a while. And I know he's at the very top of ADP here. So I know technically you're getting a quote unquote value if you're looking at sleeper ADP. I just don't agree with it. Okay, we have Tampa's tight end going off the board, my opinion. Never going to think about that. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to grab Wan'Dale Robinson here at the end of the 14th. Yes, I like those small wide receivers, I guess, going and getting Rondale Moore and Wan'Dale Robinson, another mega producer. Okay, so let's find our next guy. This next player, I don't know if I want to select him and then try to ship him off through a trade for a profit later on. That would be Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I think Marquez Valdes-Scantling is a great value here. However, I think we would have an easier time trading Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm probably going to tweet this out literally right now. Let me go and tweet this out right now. I'm going to tweet out, I refuse to believe that Drew Lock and Sam Darnold will be NFL starters while Jimmy, how do you spell Garoppolo? While Jimmy Garoppolo and Baker Mayfield are on the bench. Okay. Sending that out. I do think that eventually Jimmy Garoppolo is going to find a home. This is a quarterback that was one touchdown away from taking the 49ers to the Super Bowl last year. Y'all know I love me some Trey Lance. Jimmy Garoppolo has no shot to start in San Francisco. That is Trey Lance's job, as we've talked about for so long now. Nobody's higher on Trey Lance than we are. But let's go ahead. Let's take Jimmy G here with our last pick. And no, it does not fit our build, but hell, we could go through and we can look to package him, say, with a future second for a future first. The second that he is either traded to Seattle or traded to Carolina. But get the man somewhere, please. Please. Okay. And real quick, if you want to help me out, first, take a screenshot of this. Second, go drop a like in this tweet. Come on. Go follow at Build the Dynasty on Twitter. I know I never promote my Twitter or anything of the sort because Twitter usually sucks, but hell, if you follow that guy, Build the Dynasty, maybe we can learn something. But of course, thank you so much for sticking with me throughout the entire draft. I appreciate you all. I hope you have a great day. I will get another draft going later today on our main redraft channel. I'll probably upload a video on that redraft channel in a couple hours as well. But thank you again. I appreciate you. And yeah, hope you have a great day.